Welcome to Successful Living with Bill Napick. Every week we talk about success and everything that goes along with it. You'll learn the principles of success, how to achieve success, and learn to overcome challenges that may be getting in the way of success in your life. You'll hear from Bill Napick, a radio personality and business development expert, along with insight from special guests. If you're ready to find your path to success or take the success you're enjoying to the next level, stay tuned. Successful Living with Bill Napick is on right now.
And welcome to the show. You're listening to Successful Living with Bill Napick, and today one of our favorite guests, she is Tess Gerritsen, international best-selling author. How are you doing today, Tess?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day in Maine right now.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm sure it's not as hot, miserable, and humid as it is here in Houston. Maine is a beautiful place, isn't it?
Especially in the summertime. You might not want to come here in February, though.
Well, I'll tell you what, I do need to get up there sometime. And, of course, if you are ever in Houston, I know that you travel so much. People can check on the website to know about your travels when you're signing books and things like that, right?
Right, and I never know where my book tour will take me, but I have been back to Houston multiple times.
Very nice. Well, we will look for you. And last we talked, the book Playing with Fire was out last year, and it was such a great book. And, of course, it was unique. Your book had a musical element. Let's review just a bit, Tess, and tell people a little bit more about Playing with Fire in case they haven't picked it up, and then the song that goes with it.
The Playing with Fire is about a woman violinist who picks up a mysterious piece of music in Rome. Every time she plays it, her 3-year-old daughter goes berserk and does something violent, so she thinks the music is evil or haunted, and she has to find out where the music comes from. And her journey will take her back into a little bit of Italian history, specifically the Holocaust in Italy during World War II. So this mysterious piece of music didn't exist when I was writing the book, but halfway through writing the book, the melody came to me in a dream, and I composed the music that goes along with the story.
I have to ask, we always think about people, creative people. If it came to you in a dream, did you wake up and write the idea down, or you took note of it when you got up on your normal time and the next day?
Well, the music that came to me in a dream, I very quickly have to record it because otherwise I will forget the melody. So, yeah, that morning I sat down and played it at the piano and recorded it on my cell phone. But storylines, if I wake up from it, with it in a dream and it's a good storyline, I will usually remember it and I don't need to take any notes.
Interesting. And, of course, I say that you are an international best-selling author. Your books are tremendous, but also you've been a physician and, as you mentioned, you're a musician as well. You just cover it all.
I think creativity it doesn't get stuck in one particular outlet. We are all creative people. We just have to find the place that we want to create in. I mean, I also love to cook, but I'm not all that creative when it comes to cooking. So it's some people are great at baking, some people are good at gardening and designing gardens, and I just happen to be kind of a storyteller and a musician from way back.
Well, when you use the term storytelling, there are books written about storytelling as they apply to business, and they always chart storytelling with books like you write, but also they talk, especially recently, the art of telling story and how successful business people incorporate storytelling in their presentations because it's something that's been going on since the dawn of man.
Well, stories offer us examples of how people handled previous problems. And that's why I think we always perk up and listen when somebody gives us an example from a real life, a person who has gone through that experience and what you can learn from it. I think that when I give my talks about writing, one of the most popular parts are where did you get that story from? And that involves telling multiple stories in one particular lecture. It's not all about, you sit down and write 4 pages. It is, and this is where I got the idea for that story. They all want to hear stories.
Indeed. And stories are part of life. And you said it the last time we talked when I asked you about what you would tell people that are aspiring authors, and you say, go out and live a life. I bet you still say that.
I still say that because that's where you get your stories, by living, by listening, and by watching.
Now, let's tell people, after Playing with Fire, you talked about getting into the movie business. So Island Zero was the name and is the name of the movie. Let's tell people about Island Zero.
Yeah, this was supposed to be, and it was, a very fun family project. I have written scripts before, and, I was getting kind of burned out writing novels. So one day my son and I were we were weeding the garden, and I said, Josh, I've always wanted to write a horror film. We should make one together. Now, my son is a documentary filmmaker and very good with a camera, and he loves films. And he said, "Yeah, Ma, you write it, and let's talk about it then." So I wrote a story called Island Zero. It's set in the state of Maine, where I live, and I wanted to harken back to the old-fashioned horror films that I remember when I was a kid. I mean, I used to love horror films, and I wanted to do something that was sort of, psychological. Starts off psychological. I always think the scariest movies are where you don't know who the enemy is. You don't know what the creature is or the bad guy looks like. So Island Zero is about a little fishing island off the coast of Maine. Only has a couple dozen people live there. It's the winter time, and this island survives based on the ferry that comes to the island every couple days. Well, one day the ferry doesn't show up as scheduled, and everybody's cell phone has gone dead. So these people on the island don't know what's happening in the outside world. They send a boat onto the mainland, and it doesn't come back. And a week later, dead bodies start showing up along the shoreline. So now they're stuck. These few survivors are stuck thinking, what do we do now? Do we all leave the island? Do we try and find out what's going on in the outside world? So that's the basic setup. It's isolation, it's being cut off from any information, and it's this problem that they can't solve. And what I really was important, I wanted to do was I wanted to make sure this is not like a teen slasher film. There is blood, and there is some horrific stuff that happens in the second half of the story. But mainly, I wanted characters who I could believe really lived on this island. And I also wanted a heroine who was not a teeny bopper. And in fact, our heroine is a mature woman. Our actress is in her late 50s, and she's the one who kind of, rallies everybody together. She's the one everybody turns to for advice. She is actually the hero of the story. And she's a hero because she has a past that people aren't aware of. She served in the Army. She was an Army doctor. So when push comes to shove and it's time to start killing creatures, she's the one who does it.
Boy, that sounds great. But you also had me in the story when you said their cell phones went dead, because that's something that we're all afraid of. Boy, what if I lost all that information? But that is a great hook. Now, when I asked you about writing, did you know? I think you said that in your books you don't know the ending always or ever. But in the case of this movie, did you know the ending as you were writing the movie?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I think somehow, for some reason, writing movies is a little different for me because I usually know what's going to happen. What I don't always know as I'm writing it is how these characters interact with each other, what are their backstories, and what really haunts them. I mean, a lot of the people in this movie are haunted by something that's happened in their pasts. Yeah, I knew what the ending was, and I made a lot of independent filmmaker mistakes. There's this old saying in Hollywood that if you want to keep to budget, don't shoot on the water, don't have kids, and don't have dogs in your story. And it appears that we have all three elements in this particular movie.
And because it ends up costing more with those three elements, right?
Right, it does. I mean, when you have a child, you have to deal with shortened work hours. You have to have somebody on set all the time to keep an eye on them and to make sure they're meeting their educational goals. Shooting on the water is expensive because of insurance costs. I did not know until my producer told me. You put an actor in a boat, put them in a pond, and all of a sudden your insurance goes zooming up to like tens of thousands of dollars. So we had to avoid that and yet still look like we were on the water. And a lot of it was done with perspective by filming on shore, but making it look like they were on the water. And then I made one other huge move in this script that gave my poor producer so many headaches. The movie ends with a burning house. Now, This is an indie film that we self-funded. How do you film a burning house without breaking the bank? Luckily, we filmed mostly in an area where we know people, and our producer found a man who needed his house demolished, and he said, "Look, you come and you haul everything away. You can burn my house." And that's
nice.
how we actually got a burning house into the film.
Hey, where there's a will, there's a way. But also, I didn't say it as you talk about the characters, and I don't want to leave the movie topic, but you are the creator of the Rizzoli and Isles characters that are on TNT in the 7th season. So we'll go back to that in a minute. But when I tell people that you're going to be on the radio, a lot of them just say, "Oh, Rizzoli and Isles, hey,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
and that's fascinating. But here we are, and you're developing new characters. It sounds like you have a fantastic array of characters, and how did you find the right, or was it you that found the right actors to play the characters that you created?
Oh, for our film Island Zero,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we had a casting call. We went through a casting director in New York, and our major characters on screen are all Screen Actor Guild actors. So there was a level of professionalism we were really looking for. So, at first we thought, could we cast this with local actors in Maine, and found out we didn't have quite the depth of talent we needed for this particular story. So that was why we went through a casting director. But, we filled up the rest of the cast with some very good Maine actors.
And I bet they loved, I know I would love to be a part of that, be the fisherman or the guy in the background. That would be cool.
Yeah, it was fun, but I have to tell you, this was filmed in the month of March, so there were some very, very miserable days and some very long nights outside in the freezing cold. So it wasn't all fun and games for the poor actors. I really came away with such admiration for the craft of acting. I don't do it, but to be able to, just with a raised eyebrow, just convey so much emotion, that takes special skill.
Indeed, it does. And also, is the movie finished?
Yeah, it's filmed. It's right now in post-production. It is with the composer who's composing the soundtrack, and with the special effects people. There are a couple of other CGI tweaks that need to be added to it. But we are hoping that it could be viewed in 2017.
And do you have an idea what month that would be?
No, I don't. It goes to film festivals in early 2017, and then that's where distributors find these indie films.
Interesting. And how many minutes will it be? Do you have an idea?
It's about an hour and a half. I believe the finished, we are at Picture Lock, which is a word simply saying the edits are all finished. I believe the picture-locked version is about 93 minutes long. That's
cool. Well, you probably already know this. I looked on. It's already on IMDb on the app that I have on my phone. So it's already there, and it's fascinating how they are on top of it. But it's also fascinating to hear you as you talk about the burning house, all the things that we don't think about until you do a movie, all the things that you don't think about that are involved in any size production. That's fascinating.
Well, there's so much I learned on this. Luckily we brought in a very, she's an experienced producer who handled all the, she pretty much did everything. I wrote it, my son directed, we had actors, but she was the one who hired and fired our crew, a lot of them from Los Angeles. So there's the nitty-gritty of filmmaking, but after it was over, it took us about a month to finish filming. It was so much fun. It wasn't like, oh my God, that was a nightmare. It was so much fun. We're all like, let's do this again. We can't wait to do it again. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing like living and working with somebody for 16 hours a day for a month to really establish sort of this bonding experience, this family experience. And even though there were 35 people that were bonding, it did end up being very much a big family. So we can't wait to do it again.
Well, that is awesome. And also, when you write the movie and you say you write it, do you write each line that each character says, or you write the story and then someone boils it down to
I wrote the whole script. I wrote the screenplay.
Wow.
So it's not only the story, but it's all the dialogue and the scenes and a large number of the shots that I could envision. Now, the shots themselves, the actual filming, one of the most important people on a movie set is the director of photography, otherwise known as the cinematographer. He's the one who sort of figures out what the shots are. He brings in his crew, which includes the electrical people and the sound people. So what you see through the camera is something that he has planned out and thought about ahead of time. So we were lucky to get a really good DP from Los Angeles. And then he worked with my son. I mean, the DP actually moved into my son's house. They were like joined at the hip for a couple of months.
Fascinating. Well, when you talk about writing the dialogue, to me, as I watch a show, and depending on the pace of the show, the amount of words that each actor says, to me that just seems so tedious. How did you do that? What did you learn in doing so?
The dialogue is actually the most fun part. That's what I love to write. And when I write novels, it's the dialogue that really, gets me excited. What are these people saying? What does that tell you about them? In movies, of course, that's where the story is told. It's through what people are saying to each other and what they're revealing of each, by what they say. So that's not the tedious part. The tedious part is actually trying to describe, the setting. That, to me, and in a script, I think describing the setting is the part that I just want to get through really fast.
That's very interesting. Now, as far as making the transition, as you finished your book, Playing with Fire, you moved to the movie project. How was it to disengage from writing the books to the movie?
It's very refreshing because it's a different kind of storytelling. And I think that for your listeners who are interested in creativity or doing something in the creative fields, switching it out every so often, it makes you go back to your earlier projects with a lot more enthusiasm. I think that having written a film made me ready to jump right back into novel writing. It's good to keep your mind nimble by doing unusual things that people don't expect of you. I love doing the unexpected, and I love it when people go, "Whoa, you composed this music, or you made this horror film, and what are you doing next?" It's just, I love to surprise people.
Indeed, you do. And what you're doing next is an upcoming book called Strange Girl. Is that right?
Yeah, I just finished it. It's been turned in, and it will come out, I believe, sometime in 2017. I don't have a date yet.
It's going to be a big year, 2017, and that is also will include Rizzoli and Isles, right?
Yeah, it's a Rizzoli and Isles book. It's number 12 in the series, and it actually resolves a couple of issues that everybody's been asking about for the last couple of years. What happens to Maura's romantic life? You'll find out when you read the book.
I can hardly wait. And I wanted to tell you this as I've been watching the TV series now. I've loved both characters in the books, but when I see the actresses, I just like Maura Isles a lot.
Yeah, well,
fact, I'm like, is she single? I like her a lot. I love the way the character is portrayed. I love the actress, and she just brings something. They're both phenomenal, but I guess if you pick, I like her the best.
Well, it's interesting when it was when the TV show was cast, and it was brilliant casting. That one thing they wanted was they were looking for chemistry between the two stars. They wanted Jane and Maura to look like they could be friends, and so Angie Harmon was cast first, and then they had to find a Maura, and they brought in several actresses, and that Sasha Alexander was the one who just popped out on screen as having chemistry with Angie. So it worked. I mean, 7 years later, you still believe they're friends.
That's right. And of course, when we talk about chemistry in any relationship, it's also that opposite attraction that seems to happen. And I love how Maura is so neat and organized and dressed. I love them both. But boy, great characters. And this book, Strange Girl, is going to be exciting. I'm excited to think about that one coming up.
Well, I'll tell you what I found the most fun about writing Strange Girl is the title character. The strange girl who appears in this book. She was very fascinating to write. I can't say much more about her except that she will probably stick in people's minds after they finish the book.
There you are. Now, also, as far you just finished the book, how long did it take to write this book?
It took it probably took about a year, and that it was hard because I had all these other things that I was thinking about, like finishing the movie,
Sure.
going on book tour, finishing the composition of the music, and arranging for the recording of the music. So there's a lot of stuff going on. But about a year, I mean, I felt like it was a more difficult story to write because of all the distractions.
That's right. Well, it's interesting too. Since I talked with you before, I noticed that what you do, and it seems to work so well. You connect with your fans. You mentioned before you travel a lot, and throughout this, your Twitter feeds kind of show you in all these different cities. Just in the last few months, it seems like. But you just do a great job of connecting with fans. Why is that so important to you? Not all authors do that, but what is it you love about that? And
Well,
tell us more.
I never forget that I could not be a writer if I didn't have readers. I mean, I owe everybody who buys one of my books, I owe you something. I mean, not just a good story, but I owe you for the ability to do exactly what I love to do. If you don't have readers, you don't have a career. So, it means a lot to me that people are buying the books. But it also helps that I love to travel. I mean, it's one of my great pleasures in life. So when they invite me to go on book tour, say in the UK, I'm there. I'm happy to
Let's
go.
go, yeah. Very nice. Well, Tess, with the last few minutes, what else would you like people to know?
I'd like people to know that just because you hit 60, your creative life is not over. That there's an endless ways, a number of ways to express yourself. And the great thing about the writing career is that there's no upper age limit. You can write your first book at 75 or 80, and you can hit a bestseller list at 75 or 80. So it's probably the best career somebody who wants to have a long career can have.
No doubt about it. Also, I would like to ask you, as I did before, and that is, again, the power of an idea. And here you are taking your ideas to movies, music, writing books. Tell us again the power of an idea. They're just so important, aren't they?
Yeah, I think what's important is always to be open to the surprising. To always, and ideas come because of your exposure to many different things. So read a lot, watch movies, travel, sit and listen to people's conversations. That's where the ideas come from. You have to have the well of information before you can actually form something creative.
And we're out there living lives every day. We might as well write a few ideas
down.
That's
right. Live your life.
No doubt about it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Tess Gerritsen, TessGerritsen.com, Island Zero coming up, Strange Girl coming up, her book with Rizzoli and Isles in 2017. So we're so excited for you, and please give our best to your son. We'll look for more movies from him after this one comes out. But in the meantime, Tess, thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you very much.
Very nice. Ladies and gentlemen, Tess Gerritsen on Successful Living with Bill Napick. We're so glad you tuned in to the show. In the meantime, don't forget to tune in to Real Estate Matters with Stuart Title at 1 o'clock this afternoon on this same station, 100.7 FM. And until then, we thank Tess Gerritsen at TessGerritsen.com. Follow her on Twitter, Island Zero. Check that movie out when it comes out. And, of course, Strange Girls. And don't forget Playing with Fire. I love that book, and especially I love the Rizzoli and Isles characters. In the meantime, till next week, thanks for listening, and thank you, Tess.